you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hey folks, Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go. I'm firing all cylinders today. How's it going, guys? Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show. Did you know this? We are the oldest living podcast out of a handful of the originals, but we are the unique position of being the oldest and still putting out daily podcast shows. Nobody else is doing that. It's old like us. And we're doing it because we're just old and crazy and we can't feel our legs. So support the show. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet's up in the sky. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. Ken Young joins us. He's a multi-book author, and his trilogy is out. We'll be discussing that. The first book in the series is entitled The King's Frog Hunter. It's book 1 of 3 of the King's Frog Hunter series. We're going to get into it with him, find out all the deets, the crazy deets, as the kids always say. I don't know if that's what the kids say, but I'm just going to make it up and run with it anyway, because that's what we do here on the Chris Voss Show. He was born in California before the days of personal computers and the internet. Ken began writing short stories and plays in longhand on a manual typewriter. I did that too. Well, in college, he did that, and being an old school kind of guy, he continued the way while writing for a 70s TV show, until finally giving in to the ease and time-saving factors of technology halfway through writing this book, The King's Frog Hunter. To support his writing habit, Ken has been a builder of custom homes and remodeling. He's also assisted his local affiliate of Habitat for Humanity as a construction manager. What a great thing. I believe you had him, did Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, start Habitat for Humanity, or did he just start working with them, I think?
No, he didn't start it, but he started working with them and really helped promote it.
Yeah. Watching him do that work, especially as old as and kind of thin and frail as he seemed to be, man, he was a tougher guy than the rest of us, I guess. You now live with your wife and family of real and imaginary characters and creatures in the forests of the inland Pacific Northwest in the U.S. Welcome to the show. How are you doing, Ken?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Thanks for coming. We're glad to have you. And you got a trilogy, in fact, too. So give us .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, my website, www.kingsfroghunter.com, is really the main source. And there you can find profiles of the characters on the books, and you can read an excerpt from the first chapter of The King's Frog Hunter and contact me through the website. And there's also a color map of the kingdom that you can download for free and look at that while you're reading the book and follow it around, follow the characters around the kingdom on the map while you're reading.
There you go. And you just got international bestseller status on all 3 books. Is that correct?
Yes, I did. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome, man. And this was the first book in the series, the first book you'd ever fully written and published?
Yes, it is the first book. I'd written a lot of things in the past that hadn't really been published, or, went through the process years ago of writing short stories and sending them off and collecting rejection slips, and and that process. And I actually wrote some teleplays, screenplays that I was pushing, and when we lived in Southern California, and but now it's just down to fiction writing. So and other. Some poetry and short stories. But these are the 3 books that have been published and have done amazingly well.
There you go. Well, congratulations. Give us a 30,000 overview of the first book, The King's Frog Hunter, and we'll walk through the trilogy.
All right. Well, The King's Frog Hunter is really a book that was never intended to be a book. when I first started writing it, it was short stories that I wasn't planning on publishing at all. So the genesis of the King's Frog Hunter started when our daughter was about 5 or 6 years old. And my wife and I looked at her and thought, boy, what are we going to do with this beautiful child? How are we going to educate her, teach her the values we want to teach her? And so we went through those discussions. And one day I came home from work. And at this time, though, I should say that we'd gotten in the habit of watching a lot of TV at night. And we knew that was kind of a waste of time, but it was our habit. But I came home from work one day, and our daughter came home from school, and the TV didn't work. It wouldn't come on.
Oh.
And my wife just said, well, gee, it's not working. I guess we should take it out to the garage. And my daughter and I said, well, what are we going to do in the evenings? And she said, well, we can read books.
Oh, old-fashioned.
So I thought, what an amazing, thoughtful mother, because I realized she had just unplugged the TV. And
Are you serious?
Yeah, serious. She just unplugged it. And our daughter was too young to realize that. And so we took it out to the garage. And for the next 5 years, we eliminated TV from our environment there at home.
Wow.
Yeah. And
people should do that with their kids' PlayStation, maybe. I don't know.
Exactly. Well, if at that time, there wasn't, we didn't have cell phones and all the digital stuff. But if we had, we would have put those away for the evening as well, because we started reading books out loud and discussing them with our daughter about, the decisions and the actions that the characters made, and, how that, what that resulted in good or bad results. And so we were reading out loud things like Sherlock Holmes mystery stories, Jack London's Call of the Wild, those books.
Oh yeah, I love those books.
Yeah, Mark Twain. And then we got into The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Oh wow!
And so we were reading these out loud, but at the same, and we were using them for discussion with our daughter about what she thought of them and the. How the characters, bad decisions and good decisions that they made, right? and what were the results of that? So, but at the same time, I started writing these whimsical, fun stories for her that were about a father who was a sculptor and his daughter, a young daughter, that were in this fantastical world, ancient world, that had giant man-eating frogs. That was very
doesn't sound fun at all.
Yeah, it was very dangerous to be a frog hunter. So, but the king in the story loves eating frog legs. So anyone who went out to try to get the prized legs off the frogs never returned, except for this one hunter, Thalmus, who always returned with the prized legs for the king. So that's where the title comes from, the King's Frog Hunter. But then the father and the daughter here, and he's a sculptor of stone truth, and he gets commissioned by the king, and so it's finally his big break, and commissioned to build to sculpt a statue of the king. Well, the king is old, and he still sees himself as a young, vibrant young man, slim, but he isn't, and so the sculptor, his name is Vericitas, he sculpts a statue that is truthful, very truthful of the king, how he looks. This plump old man, stringy hair, and the king, of course, doesn't like it, throws him in the dungeon.
Oh, wow.
And then he, with the help of a mysterious friend that we find out later who it is, but he escapes from the dungeon and the castle and disappears. And the king has a prize on his head, and so he's being hunted. And his daughter, Bashina, comes to the king's frog hunter, who lives out in the country. Comes to the king's frog hunter to help her find her dad, and convince the king to take the penalty off of him, right? So that's the gist of the story. That starts the journey looking for her father. And all that goes with it. And he is one of those men that has been around forever, but looks the same age-wise. Right?
Oh, wow.
And so he's mysterious, and he has animal companions as part of the story. So these were children's stories I was writing for my daughter. And the King's Frog Hunter has a great horned owl that is his eyes and ears, especially at night. And he has a wild paint stallion that is his horse. Mm-hmm. And then he has a giant shell creature that is 8 feet across. The shell is 8 feet across. Think snapping turtle with, as a tortoise, giant shell. But anyway, that's some of the main characters in the story. But the father, once they find that they get swept up in this ancient prophecy in the kingdom that predicts the king only has one child, and it's a daughter, and they've never had a woman rule the kingdom. So there's all this controversy and evil trying to take over the kingdom, of course. But there's this prophecy that the sculptor and his daughter are crucial to the key of that prophecy to help to defeat the evil and save the king and the kingdom. So that's kind of the gist of the story. And I built into, as I wrote these stories for her, and she was growing up, and we were reading great literature and using that to place values in with her that we wanted her to grow up with. I was putting that into these stories, into the characters, the values of courage and honesty and humility, graciousness. So I was putting that in all these stories that I never intended to publish. But, and as she grew over the years, the story grew, the characters developed, and the story just kept going. And the plot got got deeper. The themes got more deeper than just, courage and standing up to evil, those sort of things. But to fast forward over the years, jump the calendar a bit. So when she graduated from law school and she asked me, well, for a graduation gift, I want you to finish my book, put the stories together. I want you to publish my book, The King's Frog Hunter. Oh. So I thought, whoa, I got to go back. So I spent about a year rewriting the stories, putting them together in a string to create a novel, right? The beginning, middle, and end of a novel. And worked with an editor. And I wanted to do silly things like put footnotes at the bottom every time about the characters, and explaining how to pronounce their names, or background stories on all the characters. And of course, the editor said, "No, you can't do that. This is fiction. You can't have footnotes in fiction." Right? So I created all the profiles of the characters, animals, and locations, and we put them in the back of the book. So in the back of the book is that resource. It's also on the website as well, giving the backstory of the characters and how to pronounce their names, whatnot. And then I worked with an illustrator to do the book cover. So here's one of the book. Here's the book cover of the King's Frog.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the back covers here is on. So he did some really wonderful illustrations. Yeah. So he did all 3 books of the covers. But anyway, I finished getting the book put together, and we launched it, got it out there, and I thought, good, that's done, that book's done. But the characters didn't want to stop. They were bugging me. They were saying, no. We
that problem with the characters.
Yeah, we want to keep going. We want to keep going. And my readers started contacting me saying, well, wait a minute. You've created this whole kingdom and these characters and this world, and we want to know what happens next, right? And so I thought, okay, if they like the book that much, if it's that good, okay, I guess I better write another one. So it took me several years to write a second one. Between working and living, life happens. And so I wrote a second book, but it didn't complete the arc in the story, really. So then I wrote the third book to complete the trilogy, which really completes the arc of the characters and the story and the whole plot. Right? So that's why I ended up with its trilogy. And then once again, my daughter says, once I got the third book done, and this was over years again, she said, well, we can't let it just sink there and lie there on Amazon, like a dead body. So let's start promoting it. And so in December of last year, book one hit the bestseller list internationally.
Wow.
And then this year into February, March, and April, May, the second and third book also became bestsellers on Amazon. So to my surprise and joy, that was amazing. Right?
Yeah, that is awesome, man.
So that's kind of the story of how the book got started and developed over time and where I'm at now with it. So
now, would you call this a fantasy series? What genre does this book fall into?
It is definitely fantasy adventure. Yeah, it is definitely with. It's in almost like a medieval world type of a world. Swords and sorcery. That's one of the categories that actually scored real high-end categories. Myths, fairy tales, and folklore along those categories as well. So, and the reviews have just been really good on all three books. So I'm pleased. Really,
first ride out,
and surprised, huh?
First ride out, and you're kicking ass, taking names. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome, my friend.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and what a beautiful story too, the origin story of, being able to read your daughter. We advocate a lot on this show with all the authors we have on, 3 a weekday, Monday through Thursday. And we advocate a lot for reading to children, not only giving books that children can read, but giving books where you as a parent can interact with the child and read to them. And there's something very powerful about that. My mom read to us when we were in her womb, at least me. I'm the first child, so I'm the best, of course. And I always tell my siblings that I took all the smart goodness out of the womb and just left them a turd in the corner. So explains a lot of my siblings, but I'm just kidding. They're not that bad. Not that bad. Anyway, I'm teasing. But no, that's really great. And, reading to your daughters, reading to your children, so many times these parents nowadays, I saw this over the weekend. I was out having a burger at a burger joint, and they had some patio furniture outside, the old style with those umbrellas and stuff. Yeah. And I'm out there, and there's 3 of these rambunctious kids that are screaming and making all this noise, and their parents are completely oblivious. They're just looking at their phone like this.
Oh, no.
One kid's like climbed up on top of the table and he's trying to tear down the umbrella, which is, it's a property. It's property. And on top of that, he could fall over and bash his head into the cement because he's up on the table. And so I'm just sitting there. My brain is going, my protection brain is going, that kid could fall and hurt himself.
Right.
And, and you see these parents that are just tuned the fuck out. I go to restaurants and all 4 2 parents and 2 kids they each have their own cell phone. And they're just sitting there, just zombie. And so I really encourage people to take some quality time, read books to their children. There's something about reading and using your imagination to paint, right? Exactly. Than there is just looking at it being provided for you. And you just sit there, because that's what I do all day long.
Well, you're very right about that. You're very right about that, Chris, is because developing the imagination, and that's what we try to do with our daughter, of course, right?
Yeah.
But through the stories that I wrote, but also everything that we read out loud, and she's today an avid reader. She just
that's awesome,
reading constantly, and she openly admits that the stories, The King's Frog Hunter, really inspired her in life. So it's the characters that she kind of emulated a bit. So, yeah.
One of the things you talk about in real life is how fiction can teach real life values without preaching. Do you want to expand a little bit on that?
Yeah. So that was one of the things my wife and I were concerned about was we didn't want to be mom and dad preaching on her about the values we wanted her to grow up with. So embedded in these stories is being able to stand up and be strong, to stay firm in your beliefs, right? And I was trying to think of some issues here that I could tell you to read from the book, actually. That And one of them is a commitment and keeping your commitments, right? Keeping if you make a decision, you make a commitment, and maybe I can find that in the book here. Yeah. So, do you mind if I read the section?
Yeah, go ahead, please do. Give us a
So this is at the very beginning of the book where I told you the sculptor's daughter Bashina comes to find the frog hunter, right? To ask for his help to find her father. So this is that excerpt from that. This shows humility, some humility in this. It shows of the king's frog hunter. Here he's this famous guy, right? And she comes to him and she says that she's here to see him because he's the great king's frog hunter, and he smiles. He says, "I am not great, as you can see for yourself." And he held his hand over his head to indicate his short stature. Well, perhaps not in height, but certainly in deeds, she replied, as she sat down on the bank several meters from him. She was wearing workman's clothes and boots, lanky and tan. She was in that awkward age beyond being a girl, but not yet a woman. "You are kind and well-spoken," Thalmus said. "Who are you? And from which village do you hail?" "Well, my name is Bashina. I come from Marbala." "Oh, I know the village. It is the home of stonecutters, of masons, and sculptors who turn rock and stone into beautiful images. Why have you traveled so far and alone?" "Well, in search of you," she said, as if he should know. "Me? What do you want with a frog hunter?" "You're more than just a hunter, aren't you?" Bashina said carefully. "It's said that you have great influence upon the king." "Oh, to that I cannot attest, for I only do his hunting," Thalmus replied. "I do not care about the matters of his court." Bashina looked a little surprised. "But it's well known that the king would grant you anything you desired." "I am truly in his favor, Bashina. To what extent I have never measured," Thalmus answered, wondering where this was heading. "Why are you asking me about the king?" "Well, from my father, Verasitis." "You are the daughter of Verasitis?" Suddenly, forgotten facts and faces and ancient predictions poured from the memory. Had that much time passed? He looked closely at her face. Yes, he saw the resemblance, the cheekbones and the lines of the chin, the calm, confident voice and the eyes of Verasitis. No wonder she had seemed familiar to him. Can this be, he wondered? Words from out of the past echoed in his mind. When the king's only child is a woman, and the daughter of the stonecutter searches the land. And here he is, Thalmus realized, the stonecutter's daughter looking at me. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, a few pages. And sure. So, that's the wrong section. Okay, jump ahead here. Okay, so Thalmus felt something being drawn. Thalmus felt himself being drawn into a world he had not traveled in many years, a world he thought he had left behind. The ancient ancestral phrase, "a decision once made as a commitment," rang in his head. He looked at Bashina, who was sitting with her arms wrapped around her folded legs. A decision once made as a commitment. The word stabbed at his heart. Memories of past decisions flooded his thoughts. How long do commitments last, he wondered. He knew the answer to that question and would not ask again, for he had agreed long ago to accept this call. Thalmus watched Bashina and saw before him the journey about to unfold. Generations had passed. The commitment had not. The time had come. So there he shows his humility, but also the commitment that he made. Obviously, we're going to find out what that is later. The commitment he made many years before to help this girl, right?
Wow.
And so once that decision is made, it's a commitment. Right?
Yeah.
So that's perhaps one of the things that to keep your word, to be honest, keep your word,
Yeah, even fantasy can teach values, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is why we love stories and we profile them on the Chris Voss Show, because there's no owner's manual to life. And so what we have are the stories that we share with each other. And sometimes those stories include blueprints on either how to behave or maybe how to recover from crises or cathartic times. And these are the lessons. It's kind of how we learn. It's kind of how we figure out life. I have a problem and I go looking for maybe people that might also have maybe some help or advice. And, whether it's fantasy or whether it's, real or a business book or something like that, people can have novels. There's all sorts of crises that people go through with life and stuff. And if you can find people that can help you through some of those issues, then it's all about survival. And that's kind of what we like too. That's why we love the stories of evil being overcome and good winning. We like that because life is pretty ugly sometimes with everything that's in it, and it can be a challenge. It's a giant, really survival game when you really understand what it is. It's like the show Survivor only on steroids, right?
Yeah. Well, and this character Bashina, the stonecutter's daughter, in the first book, she's instrumental and one of the protagonists, obviously. But over the 3 books, her character arc really develops. And by the 3rd book, she is the main character. She becomes, and what she's going through and learning and developing her talents and her skills as she grows into adulthood, and the King's Frog Hunter, along with, there's a mystic in this book called, her name's Larma, and she's also an instructor, a helper along the way. There's a order in the book, ancient order of the servants, and Thalmus is one of them, Larma is one of them, a couple other people throughout the book, and their order is to just help serve for the good of others, right? And help teach, to help others along the journey. Right? And so Thalmus, besides being a warrior and this great hunter, that's part of his role as well. And so he's with Bashina throughout all 3 books, guiding her, teaching her, but letting her get the hard knocks, letting her get beat up a few times and suffer, and to learn the consequences. So,
yeah. There you go. The consequences.
The consequences.
There you go. Yeah, this is how we learn. This is how we learn stuff. You can teach it through factual stuff, or you can teach it through, other ways and stuff like that. So very good. And I love you inspired your daughter. What's next up for you? Are you working on anything else? Is there expansion of the fantasy series or anything more coming up?
Well, there could be. It's a little bit more on the fantasy series because, gosh, just recently, some of the characters have been talking to me again about, that they'd like to have more to say in another book. But what I'm really working on, focusing on, is really the life of my mother and our family, and the story of her Alzheimer's and how she got early onset Alzheimer's and was obviously affected deeply with it when I was still in high school. And I have 3 brothers, 2 older, 1 younger. So, and what happens to a family when you remove the matriarch that is so important in a family and is pretty much running the household, running things, making sure the boys are, behaving, whatnot, while father works. And what happens when you remove that matriarch? What happens to the family? Does it spin out of control? How that affects the husband, the father. And so I'm working on that and trying to figure out how to write that, going back from the early days of when she was giving birth to me and traveling on trains back in those days, right? So, so that's what I'm working on now, and hopefully I can bring that to fruition and in a way that will help families that are going through this similar to what we went through, similar situation, similar grief, because it is more and more prevalent in our culture today.
Yeah, we have that. We were talking before the show about the sandwich generation and how we have these, people in their mid-30s, maybe 40s, I suppose, where they've got elderly parents that are in dementia and need care and are in diapers, and they've got the other. I don't know why they call it the sandwich generation. I call it the dual diaper generation.
Yeah. That's what it should be. Yeah.
Kinda. I mean, sandwiches. I'm like, are they making sandwiches for the old people and the young people? Yeah, a lot of these people, they're still raising young children, so they're kind of stuck between raising young children and taking care of their elderly parents, and it's a tough job because you got two kids in the house, or more than two kids, but you got two kids on the end of the spectrum. There you go. I don't know. You just give them both Legos and let them play together, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, that's very tough and hard on the family. Very difficult on the families.
It really is. It's hard to watch people disappear, and imagine that was part of the journey that you had to experience.
It is. It really is. To see mom fade away like that, that was really difficult.
Yeah, I'm going through that now with my sister. She used to call me once a day or once a week, I think it was, or every couple times a week. She would call me and wish me happy birthday. Oh. And at first I would be like, Delana, are you okay? It's not my birthday. It's not even close. And she'd get upset and she'd cry. And then I had to learn that what you need to do is you need to help them kind of maintain their reality. And so then when she would call a couple times a week and wish me happy birthday, I'd be like, oh, well, thank you for remembering. That is so awesome. And, since then we've had people on the show that have talked about this, that handle dementia patients, and, how you kind of have to let them stay in their world and their bubble. And you can't, if you just confuse them by trying to force reality onto them, that makes it worse, Yeah.
And that's what would happen with my mom. She would, you couldn't force reality on her. You had to be careful. And
it's tough. Well, it's a tough journey, and I'm glad you're writing about it and talking about some of the things. You're at that age of being a teenager, your mom's really important, and helpful, and not having access to that can be quite the challenge and stuff. But that should be a good book to write. Anything else you want to promote on the show? Any stuff on your website? Coaching, consulting, speaking, events, anything like that?
No, I have spoken numerous times at schools. Some teachers that have used the books and read in the classroom, and then they have me come in and talk about it. So if they want to get a hold of me, either through the website and get a hold of me, or at kenyoung.kfh@gmail.com. KFH as in King's Frog Hunter.com. So I've spoken schools and some book groups and several bookstores that have had me come and read from the books and talk about writing. And really, I think these books would be good also for like homeschoolers, parents that are homeschooling, because when I get parents telling me that when they've read the story, The King's Frog Hunter, when they've read it to their children, and then the children are running around play acting using the names from the book, Princess Ekala, Bashina, the Frog Hunter, and that's really fulfilling.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome, dude. So thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate having you, Ken.
Well, thanks for having me on. I wish we could talk longer. I could talk forever about these books, Chris.
Yeah. So, well, we want people to go buy them.
Yeah, we want people to go buy them.
Too much, then.
So they're on Amazon, ebooks and print books, and on my website there's a link to Amazon. I don't sell books from my website, but there's links on the website. There's descriptions, like I said, of the characters. I have a little author stuff on there I write once in a while, put on the website about the characters, what's announcements like your show, and So I mainly use that website. I do have Facebook, but I hardly ever use that. So it's kind of almost non-existent. So, I'm kind of still like old school guy that still trying to get used to all these different platforms, right?
Darn newfangled stuff.
Yeah, that's for sure. But the King's Frog Hunter, it has lessons for all of us, because it's a story about the power of truth. Mm-hmm. It's about choosing the right path, about being strong and courageous in the face of falsehoods, and about reason and faith and all that wrapped into a fun fantasy adventure story.
There you go. A wonderful sell job, Ken. And I'm sure people will love it. It is a bestseller too, by the way, international bestseller on all three books. So check them out, folks. The book is entitled The King's Frog Hunter. That's the first book in the series of three that are the King's Frog Hunter series. Can
I tell you the other books real quick?
Sure, yeah, slip it in.
Yeah, so the second book is The Shadows of War. Here's its cover right here. Mm-hmm. You can see that, Shadows of War. And then the third book is The Burning Battle. This is the big finale, right?
The Burning
Battle. The Burning Battle. And all three now are international bestsellers, which is amazing. And I hope people pick it up and read it. I think they'll enjoy it. And I would love to hear from people reading it, what they thought of it, and how they think I could improve it, or an idea for the next book. So
there you go. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it, Ken.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks so much for tuning in. Order up his book wherever fine books are sold. You can find them on, link to it on our website as well. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1 on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.